This is Joe Biden. On July 1st, 2022, the Harvard Center for American Political Studies and the Harris Poll released the results of a survey that was conducted at the end of June, and it wasn't good for the current resident. Biden's approval rating is at 38%, and his disapproval is at 57%, with 5% not sure. Those 5% of respondents are probably torn between whether they hate Biden or just simply dislike him. And on specific issues, Biden's approval rating is underwater on nearly every issue in the survey, including his handling of the economy, jobs, immigration, foreign affairs, administering the government, crime, and inflation. Biden scored best regarding reacting to the coronavirus, but even that was only at 50%, so it's kind of like a half glass empty, half full kind of deal. Next, 60% of voters have doubts about Biden's mental fitness to stay in office. This includes 27% of Democrats and 67% of independents. And 64% of voters surveyed think that Joe Biden is showing he is too old to be president, including 34% of Democrats and 73% of independents. In the last few months, there have been numerous articles about Democrats' frustration with Biden and whether or not Biden should run for a second term, including this New York Times article titled, "Should Biden Run in 2024? Democratic Whispers of No Start to Rise." In it, David Axelrod, who was the chief strategist for Barack Obama's presidential runs, is quoted as saying, "The presidency is a monstrously taxing job, and the stark reality is that the president would be closer to 90 than 80 at the end of a second term, and that would be a major issue. He looks his age and isn't as agile in front of a camera as he once was, and this has fed a narrative about competence that isn't rooted in reality." And while Axelrod stopped short of saying that Biden shouldn't run, Mark Leibovich wrote a piece for The Atlantic titled, "Why Biden Shouldn't Run in 2024. Yes, he's fit to be president right now, but he's too old for the next election." It all feels impolite to point this out, disrespectful, ageist, and taboo, especially given the gross Republican smears about Biden being a doddering and demented old puppet. No one wants to perpetuate this garbage. But then goes on to say, he will sometimes mangle sentences, blank on names, get tortured by teleprompters, lose his train of thought, or not make sense, which is not so abnormal for someone his age. Oh, this happens sometimes? No, Mark. It happens constantly. Here's Joe Biden on July 8th, 2022.
Women, it's a quote now from the majority. "Women are not without electoral or political power. It is noteworthy that the percentage of women who register to vote and cast a ballot is consistently higher than the percentage of the men who do so." End of quote. Repeat the line. Women are not without electoral and or political, or maybe precise, not and or political power.
81 million votes, guys.
Right now, in all 50 states in the District of Columbia, when tens of millions of women vote this year, there used to be a case called Connecticut versus Griswold, which was declared unconstitutional in the late 60s. And that has changed. And all that's changed is this court, end of quote. The fastest way to restore Roe. Whoa. And she was forced to have to travel out of the state to Indiana to seek to terminate the presidency and maybe save her life.
Terminate the presidency.
Okay, enough of that. Anyway, it's not just politicos that are questioning whether or not Biden should run. It's the American people. According to the Harvard Harris poll, 71% of all voters say that Joe Biden should not run for a second term, with 45% of those who voted no saying that he is a bad president, and 30% saying that he's too old. For comparison, 61% of voters don't think that Donald Trump should run in 2024, which is 10% less than the amount of voters against Biden running for a second term. In fact, in a hypothetical race between Donald Trump and Joe Biden, 3% more likely voters chose Trump over Biden. In other words, Donald Trump would beat the man who received the most votes in the history of the United States. So with that said, I think it's time. Yep, the time has come to rank all of the potential Democrat presidential candidates for 2024. And based on my research, these 16 would-be contenders are the ones that are consistently mentioned by political pundits. These are considered the best and brightest among the Democrats. So yeah, we won't be needing these. First, Senator Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts. She's up for Senate re-election in 2024, so it's unlikely that she would run for president, unless a win was a sure thing, which it never will be. Because Grandma has major credibility problems. She lied about getting fired from a teaching job because she was pregnant, she lied about having Native American heritage, and in a last-ditch political effort, tried to paint Bernie Sanders as a sexist, which nobody believed because it's completely out of character for the man. So Lion Elizabeth Warren goes in the F tier. North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper. Cooper is the governor of a largely red state, and that's a problem. As WRAL points out, if Cooper did run for president, that would require him to travel out of state to campaign, and doing so would mean that Cooper would have to leave Republican Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson in charge of the state, giving executive powers to a political enemy. So he can't effectively campaign because he would likely alienate the Democrats in his state, and that wouldn't help him on the national level. I honestly don't understand why pundits even think that Cooper is a legitimate consideration, but whatever. Roy Cooper goes in the F tier. California Governor Gavin Newsom. After successfully fending off last year's recall effort and now cruising towards re-election for a second term, Newsom has gotten a little cocky. On July 4th weekend, Governor Newsom ran an ad criticizing Florida.
Freedom, it's under attack in your state. Your Republican leaders, they're banning books, making it harder to vote, restricting speech in classrooms, even criminalizing women and doctors.
Except most, if not all of it, is untrue. I made a video debunking it, by the way. Now, many Democrats and pundits saw that ad as Newsom dipping his toe into the water for a run in 2024. However, if Biden stays in the race, he won't run. And if his friend Kamala Harris runs, it's expected that he would step aside. And if he does, his chances of being picked as vice president increase. But if he does run, Newsom, along with his brand of West Coast elitism, is going to have a hard time winning over moderate Democrats and flyover state independents. But he does have a presidential look about him. And he is under 80 years old, so that's a plus, I guess. Low-rent Patrick Bateman goes in the C tier. Georgia Governor Stacey Abrams. She's currently running for governor against incumbent Republican Brian Kemp. And according to analysis from 538, Kemp has the edge to win in November. So if Abrams loses against Governor Brian Kemp, she'll lose most of the political capital that she's accumulated over the last few years. Or she'll just claim that the election was rigged against her again, I don't know. But if she does win, her term would start in January 2023, and she would almost immediately have to start running for president, which would likely piss off Georgia voters, and then opponents would paint her as an opportunist. If she does win, she'd be smart enough to wait until 2028, but no one ever accused her of that. So in every scenario, Governor Stacey Abrams goes in the F tier. Senator Sherrod Brown. Brown is also up for Senate re-election in 2024, so a run is unlikely. Brown, who considered a run in 2020, is one of the most liberal members of the Senate, which could alienate moderates and independents. Plus, he'll be 72 on Inauguration Day, and I think people are over the whole boomer thing. Sherrod Brown goes in the D tier. Former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. This past June, Clinton appeared on CBS Mornings and was asked by Gayle King if she would consider running again for president.
Last question. You're a former First Lady, former Secretary of State, former Senator. Do you miss the day-to-day of politics? Is there any scenario in your brain that you would think, I want to get back in?
No, but I miss it. I miss it.
There's no scenario in 2024 that you would even remotely consider.
I can't imagine it. I really can't. But what I can imagine is staying as active and outspoken as I can.
Yeah, Hillary didn't say no. In January 2022, Doug Schoen and Andrew Stein, in an op-ed for the Wall Street Journal, attempt to make the case for a Hillary Clinton comeback. President Biden's low approval rating, doubts over his capacity to run for re-election at 82, Vice President Kamala Harris's unpopularity, and the absence of another strong Democrat to lead the ticket in 2024 have created a leadership vacuum in the party, which Mrs. Clinton viably could fill. So Doug Schoen and Andrew Stein, who haven't been politically relevant since the 1990s, claim that Hillary Clinton would be so popular that she could just swoop right in and re-energize the Democrat Party. Right. According to the Harvard-Harris poll, Hillary Clinton has a less favorable rating than both Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. And in very scientific polling posted on my YouTube community page and on Twitter, it seems that my viewers and Twitter followers think that Joe Biden would ultimately be the better president over Hillary Clinton. And sure, Clinton's a two-time loser, but then again, so is Joe Biden, so maybe third time's a charm. Hillary Clinton goes squarely in the C tier for Clinton. Former First Lady Michelle Obama. In her 2018 autobiography, Becoming, Michelle Obama writes, "I'll say it here directly. I have no intention of running for office, ever." So even though the Obamas have made it very clear that Michelle doesn't want to hold political office, that hasn't stopped the wishful thinking from both Democrats and Republicans alike that she could be convinced to change her mind and save the Democrat Party in 2024. Stop trying to make Michelle Obama happen. It's not going to happen. My prediction, she's not going to run. But on the other hand, if she did run, Barack Obama would likely be the shadow president. Here he is on Canadian television in 2020.
If somebody had said, you can sit in your basement in your sweats and there's somebody else who's playing the president with a microphone in his or her ear and you can just kind of give suggestions and policy, then I might have enjoyed doing that.
Sounds like a selling point to me, right, Democrats? Michelle Obama goes in the B tier. Governor Gretchen Whitmer. Back in June, Whitmer was asked about a 2024 run.
Would you rule out your own run for president in 2024?
I gotta tell you, I appreciate that it's flattering for people to even ask.
People are talking about it, though. That's why I asked. You're not ruling it out.
I'm not even talking about 2024 right now. I'm focused on Michigan right now.
So obviously Whitmer can't say that she wants to run for president while she's running for governor, but she wants to. She's closely aligned with Joe Biden, so if he runs, she'll pass on 2024. But she has no such loyalty to Kamala Harris, so if Biden drops out, Whitmer's running. Governor Whitmer goes in the C tier. Senator Bernie Sanders from Vermont. For the last two election cycles, Sanders has been a formidable opponent, and 2024 would likely be no exception. Bernie is still pretty popular with his base and could handily beat candidates like Elizabeth Warren and Amy Klobuchar, not to mention at this point, Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. With that said, if Sanders runs as a Democrat in 2024, the DNC will do everything they can to crush him, just like they did in 2016 and in 2020. And yes, Sanders could run as an independent, but chances are he would split the vote and increase the chances of handing over a win to the Republican nominee, whoever that ends up being. But as a Democrat candidate, Bernie Sanders goes in the D tier. Sorry, Bernie. New York Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Just like her fellow do-nothings in the House, including Maxine Waters, Rosa DeLauro, Jerry Nadler, and Jim Clyburn, among others, AOC's constituents are so brainwashed that if she wants to stay the Congresswoman in New York 14, she's there for life. But will she rest on her laurels? After Senator Kirsten Gillibrand's disastrous run for president in 2020, she's politically vulnerable, and AOC could and should primary her to become the junior senator from New York. AOC running for Senate is the obvious play. But if she does decide to run for president in 2024, she faces some challenges. In the Harvard-Harris poll, AOC's favorable rating is at 27%, but on the plus side, 33% of respondents claim that they have never heard of her or have no opinion. And while AOC is one of the top 5 Democrat fundraisers in the House of Representatives, she's refused to pay her required share of dues to the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee. So like Bernie Sanders before her, the DNC will probably do everything they can to destroy her chances of ever becoming the Democrat nominee. AOC goes in the D tier. Now it's time for the speed round. First, Senator Amy Klobuchar. Like Elizabeth Warren, she's up for Senate re-election and is unlikely to run. And if she does run for president, no one will care. D tier. Senator Cory Booker. If Harris runs, Booker will sit on the sidelines, hoping that his friend will pick him up as VP. And in a post-George Floyd world, if Cory Booker does run, he'll do slightly better than he did in 2020, but not by much. D tier. Former mayor of New Orleans, Mitch Landrieu. I honestly have no idea why he's on anyone's list, including this one. D tier. Governor of Illinois, J.B. Pritzker. Man, Democrats are desperate. F tier. And that's it for the speed round, guys. We'll be right back. Next, Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg. Buttigieg technically won the Iowa caucus and came in a very close second behind Bernie Sanders in the New Hampshire primary. In fact, it was practically a tie in both contests. But when it came to the South Carolina primary, Buttigieg came in fourth, saw the writing on the wall, and suspended his presidential campaign on March 1st. On March 2nd, Mayor Pete threw his support behind Joe Biden. Probably because he knew if Joe Biden won, he would be given a job in the administration. Which in fact did happen, as Buttigieg was made the head of the Department of Transportation, even though the former mayor wasn't even capable of filling up potholes on the streets of South Bend. But that's okay, because he's a member of the LGBTQIA+ community, which is super important in Democrat politics. As it should be. And for some completely unrelated reason, black voters didn't connect with Pothole Pete. But don't worry, Buttigieg has a solution. Pandering.
If a road was built in such a way that it removed, destroyed, or divided a community of color, that's something we got to deal with.
What do you do about it? Because, I mean, you're not going to reroute a highway.
Well, you might.
What?
If federal dollars were used to divide a neighborhood or a city, federal dollars should be used to reconnect it. But the point is, transportation should always connect, never divide.
Yes, that'll win him over. Mayor Pete goes in the D tier. Vice President Kamala Harris. According to the Harvard Harris poll, Vice President Kamala Harris has a less favorable rating than Joe Biden, which is quite an accomplishment, honestly.
This is a serious matter.
Yeah.
During her time in office, Vice President Harris has accomplished, well, nothing. For example, Harris was completely ineffective in her capacity as border czar.
I want to be clear to folks in this region who are thinking about making that dangerous trek to the United States-Mexico border. Do not come. Do not come.
Yeah, they didn't listen. Illegal border crossings have hit an all-time high and have increased 11 out of the first 16 months of the Biden-Harris administration. Although there are Democrats out there who think this is a good thing, so I don't know. The only way that Harris becomes the Democratic nominee in 2024 is if Biden, due to unforeseen circumstances, is unable to finish his term, which would make Kamala Harris the President of the United States. And if this happens, the DNC would likely discourage anyone trying to primary Harris in 2024, making her the de facto nominee. But if Biden volunteers to drop out, all bets are off, and that'll leave Harris susceptible to Democrat challengers. And considering that Harris was largely rejected in 2020 and with very little to show during her time as Veep, Kamala Harris goes in the F tier. As of now, the current slate of Democrats is, yeah, it's not great. So with that said, our final entry is resident Joseph R. Biden Jr. As Joe Biden stumbles towards 2024, he will likely run unopposed. Although AOC could be gutsy enough to try and primary him, but who knows. Biden's biggest problem happens to be the most important issue to voters, the economy. Record high gas prices, record high inflation, and a likely recession are destroying Biden's chances for getting reelected. The only thing that Biden has going for him is that he beat Trump in 2020. That's it. And I hate to break it to you, but all of this chatter among Democrats is a pipe dream. Joe Biden isn't going anywhere, at least not voluntarily. You gotta love how outlets like the New York Times have the balls to print think pieces titled, "Biden is too old to be president again," when they knew full well that he was too old for a first term. You insisted on him, Democrats. No refunds. And regardless of who runs against him in 2024, whether it be Trump or DeSantis or whoever, Biden has a message for them.
I want to tell my Republican friends, get ready, pal. You're going in for a problem.
Resident Joe Biden goes in the F tier. Anyway, that's it for now. Be sure to hit that like button, check out these videos that you probably missed, and a special thanks to Poofy for her help with this week's script. As always, be sure that you're still subscribed to the channel, and I hope to see you next time. If there is a next time.